What's going on, guys? In this video, I wanted to take a look at some of the recent news around SoFi Technologies and then discuss the stock price movement and where I think the stock is headed in the future. As always, if you like the video, make sure you drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit the sub button. All right, let's start by taking a look at SoFi Technologies chart over the last kind of few days to last few months. So over the last day, we've seen the stock go down 7.4%. And even after hours, we've seen it go down, you can see here, almost 40 cents, which equates to 2.8% on top of the already huge down day. And what does that look like over the last 5 days? So over the last 5 days, we had some big news come out around SoFi Technologies, and that was released at the end of day Tuesday, basically leading into Wednesday. And you can see that the stock price basically pumped up here and then pumped up again Wednesday leading into Thursday. So those days, overall the market was still relatively weak, like we've seen, but it was very, very weak the end of day Thursday and especially on Friday. So we saw the stock basically fall off and almost fall back to some of these levels kind of that we saw early in the week, which is very interesting because this news that we're going to go over here is huge. It has a huge benefit to SoFi Technologies, and overall is going to be a very good positive thing for the business. So as I mentioned, here we can see that SPY, so that's the S&P 500, was down on the day almost 2% on Friday, and then over the last 5 days we've seen a lot of kind of continued weakness in the market here as it's just kind of bled off. And then Thursday, as I mentioned, into Friday, we saw huge downward moves kind of in the market overall, and that's the S&P 500, so that makes up the top 500 stocks, and this has kind of held up relatively well over the last month because of a lot of the bigger name stocks have kind of had basically had a stranglehold on the market and basically kept everything high. That's Apple, Amazon, a lot of those kind of bigger name stocks, Microsoft, but they're finally starting to sell off, and that's why we're seeing this huge dip here that kind of led into the end of last week. So relatively not in a very good situation for the overall market, and that's kind of what has led SoFi down even further. And we could see something similar with the Russell. So the Russell has had weakness for a lot longer than the S&P 500. You can see here over the last 6 months it's down 10% alone. But if we go back a month, it's down actually 11%. In the last 5 days we're down 7%, and you can see it's kind of continued to sell off. So the Russell's a lot smaller stocks. It's the Russell 2000, so it encompasses a lot of those kind of smaller cap stocks, and obviously SoFi Technologies would kind of be in a similar category. So overall, like I said, we've seen a lot of weakness, and I think that weakness has resulted in a lot of pulling back of the stock. So let's jump into the news that actually led to this spike and the long-term benefits that we're going to see from that news. So as I mentioned, on Tuesday we saw the stock soar, and basically the reason for that is SoFi Technologies soars after clearing final regulatory hurdles to become a bank. So this is huge, absolutely massive news. As you can see here, this was posted on Tuesday, January 18th, so just a few days ago, and I'd like to kind of point out some of these highlights that I have in here. So SoFi Technologies, it rallied over 16% after hours trading on Tuesday, so that's huge, as it became basically, it cleared its final hurdles to become a bank, and that is absolutely massive. So SoFi Technologies right now, a lot of their products, basically they're using third parties to provide loans, cash accounts, and debit cards. And basically they announced a deal a while back that they were looking to acquire this company called Global Specific Bank Corp. And basically they're going to use them to gain access to bank charters. So banks obviously have a lot of regulation, and because of that, not anyone can become a bank. They have to pass these hurdles, these approval processes to actually get full approval to become a bank. So SoFi's been looking at this for a number of years, and basically what the path forward they decided on is this acquisition of Pacific Bank. And in doing that, right, they actually gain, basically they purchase them, and then they gain their bank charter. So this is huge, as I kind of mentioned, because right, what they end up what they've ended up having to do over the last few years is have middlemen that are basically taking on the transaction. So here you can see banking, while officially entering the banking business brings more regulatory oversight, it is also improves the company's economics by cutting out the middleman. SoFi gets a bigger slice of transactions. So they can also provide more competitive interest rates, the CEO is kind of talking about here, and it gives them higher yields on accounts. So a lot of, right, SoFi having a middleman, right, they might have to bump up your interest rates on if they're providing you a loan by, let's say, 0.25%, because that's what they need on their margin to basically for it to make sense for them to offer that loan. And then same thing with some of these high yield savings accounts. So they might put you in a savings account through a different bank, like let's say through Golden Pacific Bank Corp. They might put you in a savings account with them that has a yield, let's just say you'd never get a yield of really 2%, but if you had a savings account yield of 2%, then they might actually offer you only 1.5, because they might take that other 0.5% and basically use that for it to make sense for SoFi Bank. So it basically, them being able to have a bank charter provides them with the ability to offer you that 2% and still make the return that they need to basically make sense for them, because they're a business, right? They have to make money. So the last thing I've highlighted up here is very interesting, and I've looked into it before, and I don't know how many people are really aware of it, but Anthony Noto, so he is the CEO of SoFi Bank, and he actually was formerly a partner at Goldman Sachs and the chief operating officer of Twitter. And I think that is huge for people to kind of understand, because this guy has not only the banking experience that you'd want from someone running a company like SoFi, but he also has the operating experience of a company like Twitter, which is a huge tech company, right? So you have the best combination for a CEO in what you would want, because this guy has experience from both industries. He can look at both sides. He understands the final user and the user interface that people are looking for, but he also understands the importance of the banking aspects, all the regulations, everything that you're going to run into. So I have a lot of trust in this guy in the long term, and I think overall everything's kind of positive that's moving forward with the stock. And we're going to take a look at some price targets next, and kind of what I think is going to be happening over the next few months in terms of the actual pricing of the stock. We've looked at this before in one of my previous videos, but today I wanted to look at it again because it changes all the time, right? You have new analysts come out, and this is the price targets for SoFi Technology. So right here you can kind of see the chart that we have for SoFi Technologies, and we're at a price right now of $13.89. As I previously mentioned, after hours we've actually sunk down to $13.50, and right now there's 7 analysts basically saying that SoFi is a buy, 1 overweight, and 3 that are saying hold. So a fair number of analysts actually covering the stock. And then here is where I'm really interested at. So these are the price targets. So the high price target is $30, the median is $20, and the low is $16. So even $16 is a fair bit of value compared to basically where the current price is at, with an average of price target of $21.15. So overall, everything is pointing basically in the positive direction here, which is very, very positive and very good for the stock. But what I want to take a look at, and what I think is most interesting, is if we look at the last kind of 3 months, let's actually look at the last year, it'll give us a better picture. But we can see this cyclical kind of nature that SoFi Technologies has had. So it's been up here in the $20, kind of $22, $23 range, sunk back down to the $14, $15, $16 range, spiked back up to the $22 range, sunk back down to kind of 14, 15, 16, spiked back up to the $22 range, and then we've sunk back down even further than before, down to kind of a low here of around $12. So this is very interesting. So you can see it's done this 3 times, and if I had to bet, it's going to do it again. And what I'm really kind of banking on or see happening is, right, these 3 times it never had a bank charter. It didn't have all this positive news. It didn't have all these things kind of going for it in the positive direction. So why would I expect it to go back in here? The highest price or the highest target is $30. I don't think that's unreasonable, but the average is $21.15. $21.15 would basically be the stock resorting back to where it's been these last 3 times, when, again, it didn't have a bank charter. So why would this huge positive news come out that's down here, right? We're seeing relative, just overall weakness in the market. So obviously the stock's beaten down and it's going to stay down for a little bit. But when it spikes up, why would it go back into this range of $22? In my opinion, it could go 25 to 30, maybe even $35. I think $35 would be a stretch. I think it would be the market kind of pushing it beyond where it probably should be. But I think $25 is not unreasonable for this stock. Obviously, this is just my opinion. This isn't financial advice. But if we're looking at the stock and we just look at the price analysts, basically the price target, we take a bad case situation. So worst case, we're only going to, or what I see is worst case, we're only going to 21.15. And let's say the current price, if we bought in at $13.89, which is actually higher than its current price of $13.50 that it actually closed down after hours. If we take those two numbers and we take the 21 minus the $13.89, we get $7.26 is basically our potential upside. Then we divide that by the current stock price, we have a 52% upside. 52%. And I don't see a lot of additional downside to this stock. Right? We've seen a lot of beaten down. All the news that you're reading right now is negative. There's a lot of things kind of going against the stock market all around. So I don't think the stock market is going to go down much lower. You might see the S&P 500 continue to drop as kind of the large cap stocks correct further down. But I think a lot of these small caps, they're starting to hit bottoms. If small caps start spiking up and large caps keep falling, you're going to see the market keep falling. Just because, right, the S&P 500 is held up by these larger companies. But I would just be careful because, right, you won't notice these small caps start to spike. If you don't keep an eye on them, they'll spike without you noticing, and basically, right, they won't have any effect on the broader market. They won't affect the S&P 500 because they're so small. So just keep an eye on these small kind of cap companies, and if you like companies like SoFi, then start purchasing shares. I'm gonna keep selling puts against these stocks. I'm probably gonna start selling at the money because I'm worried about the market actually turning around and actually missing out on opportunities. So if you like that method, then keep selling puts, keep running the wheel on these stocks, and I might even just start buying in shares just because I like these companies a lot. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit the sub button. As always, have a wonderful rest of your day.